Hello and welcome to St Michael's Hill. On this week's video I'm going to be reviewing the PGA wagon from Cavalex. This is a wagon that I've been really looking forward to kind of getting hold of and having a look at in a lot more detail. Obviously Cavalex are a new manufacturer on the scene, so I want to have a look at kind of what they've been doing, the quality of the model, and also maybe talk a little bit about the emergence of new manufacturers and what I think that means for the model railway scene as a whole. First up, I just want to be very clear about this review. Unlike every other review on the channel where I've bought the stock myself, these items have actually been sent to me by Alex at Cavalex Models, and I would like to thank him for doing that. I have to return them. I'm not being paid to do this, so I don't get anything out of this other than the chance to have a closer look at a model that's very interesting to me. So I still believe the review is going to be an unbiased and honest opinion of these models. Anyway, on to the review, where I'll be looking at the usual things for me: build quality, level of detail, livery application, and value for money. Before I get into the review of the wagon itself, I just want to talk a little bit about the box. I'm not really one to go into kind of packaging types that manufacturers use. Generally, it's pretty similar these days, with a kind of cardboard and kind of plastic clamshell type thing, and Cavalex is no different on this front. But I just wanted to talk about the design of the box itself. I think it's a really stylish design. I think it's a little bit unique, and you know, I think these just look really cool, to be honest. So I just kind of wanted to point that out, but it's not really a big thing, but very, very nicely designed. The review samples that I've received of these wagons are in two different liveries. The one on the right is the Redland livery, which I believe was the original version of the PGA 012 that were kind of manufactured in the late 80s. The one on the left represents a more recent livery. It's basically an unbranded or debranded Lafarge livery, which probably would have been the case since, I believe it's DB Schenker took over Lafarge later on in the 2000s. So I will be looking at both across the review. I have had a good look at them, and they are very, very similar. There are various versions of this wagon available. Some have ladders, some have various other kind of differences, but these two, as far as I can see, are exactly the same, just in a different livery. So whilst I'll kind of jump around between the two of them, it's fair to say that they're very, very similar. First thing I'm going to be talking about is the build quality of the model. It's a very weighty wagon. They weigh around 50.5 grams, so it's a fairly heavy wagon, to be honest. I've not actually got any wagons in my collection of this size that are that sort of weight. It's very nice to see, and that basically comes from the chassis, which is a die-cast metal chassis. The top of the wagon is a plastic hopper, but it really feels weighty. You can imagine once you get quite a few of these in a train, you're going to have a nice kind of weighty appearance, and that kind of, I don't know, it just has a kind of weighty look about it as well. It's kind of the way it almost sits. So that's kind of very nice. In terms of all the kind of small parts, there are a lot of small parts on the wagon, lots of separately kind of fitted little bits of detail, and things that are not just moulded into the plastic. And as far as I can see, all of these are in place as they should be. There's no broken parts. Even the underframe detailing, which is very, very fiddly and tiny, is all in position and as it should be. So the build quality and quality control has been very good as far as I can see on the wagons that I've been provided. Along with the quality, I suppose, we need to look at how they run. I've been running these all afternoon and some of yesterday as well, and I haven't found any trouble on my layout at all. They kind of go over the points as easy as anything around the tight curve at the beginning of my station too. So no issues whatsoever with their running. Not had any issues with the couplings or anything like that. So as far as the build quality and how that reflects running, all very good. As you'd expect with any modern wagon, the wheels are metal and run very freely. There's kind of no issues there whatsoever. And just, again, it feels like a very high quality product. When it comes to the level of detail on these, I'm very, very impressed overall. There's some very nice features, including these etched walkways that are very, very fine indeed. Then the underframe as well is very, very impressive. If I turn the model over and kind of show you, there's a lot of details and pipes that frankly you just can't see when the model is running, even from kind of a ground level. Very little of it you can see from ground level, let alone, you know, the usual kind of position up here somewhere. So the fact that these modern companies like Cavalex and Accurascale as well, I know, go into such detail below the wagon is kind of, it's incredible really. There's really no need for them to do it, other than the fact that they want to create a model that is as a truer representation of the mod or of the prototype as possible, and that doesn't go unnoticed and unmissed. It's very nice, and it really gives the wagon a kind of level of detail and quality. Each wagon is supplied with a detailing pack, which can be used to detail the end of the wagon. So you see here in the pack, it's a couple of air pipes and hoses and things like that, which if you want, you can fit. There are kind of small lugs or small holes that you can fit those detailing parts into. I'm not sure if the detailing parts would foul the coupling if you decided to fit those and have the tension lock, or you could replace that with a KD or something. I'm not sure whether that detailing would foul that. As it's a sample that I will be returning, I kind of can't open that to test it out, but it's certainly nice to have that option and those pipes in place. At the very least, at the end of the wagon, you can include those along with maybe an end of train light. Speaking of end of train lights, you can see there that there's a lamp iron hook to basically have that on there if you would like to as well. Another nice little detail. There's kind of a, I guess, I'm going to say it's decorative coupling hook there, but it feels fairly sturdy from when I've kind of had a look at it. So you probably could end up using that. You could add a 3-link chain or something to that and actually, you know, use that to couple up the wagons. But it's certainly there as a decorative alongside the tension lock coupling that is, as you would expect, in an NEM pocket. When it comes to livery application, I kind of thought it'd be good to get both wagons out, and really across both, very, very crisp all round. Obviously simple liveries in the sense that we've got plain colours throughout, just with some kind of branding on top, but everything's been applied very, very neatly. There's lots of kind of readable kind of decals or text that are kind of on the bottom and are different on both wagons, which is a nice touch and obviously represent the prototype properly. There's very, very little that you can kind of fault really on here. The colours across all the railing parts are kind of well done throughout. There's one or two little kind of nicks, you know, at the bottom of this ladder here. There's a slight chip off it, but let's be honest, really not a problem. And throughout, everything is very, very crisp, as you'd expect. All these kind of branding or the debranding kind of patches, very straight, very true, and everything across both wagons looks absolutely mint condition, really mint perfect. The only kind of slight criticism, and it's, it's on both wagons really, is that the yellow on the axles is a little bit, it's been applied a little bit sloppily compared to the rest of the wagon. But once this has been weathered, for most people, it's really not going to be a problem at all. And it's actually one of the only things that I can actually fault Cavalex on, is just the application of that yellow paint on those axles is not as crisp as everything else. But to be honest, if you're creating a wagon as a new company, and that's the only thing that people can pick you up on, then I really don't think there's much that you're doing wrong. So then on to value for money. This is a category that I think is the most difficult to kind of judge. It's very subjective, and will kind of very much kind of differ on what people's kind of financial situation is when they first got into the hobby, what wagons cost when they were buying more of them, and all that sort of stuff. So it is difficult to kind of quantify at times. These wagons retail at around £30 each. And whilst I don't think that's cheap, certainly it's not a small amount of money, it is kind of not unusual for a modern wagon from Hornby or Bachmann or anyone like that. Now, you could possibly argue that these are a little bit more expensive than those, but I would say that actually, value for money, they probably stand up to anything else. Now, I say this for two reasons. Number one, I certainly haven't come across a more detailed wagon, personally. It has to be said, I've not seen the latest kind of Cura scale wagons, so I'm very aware that they probably stand up to these and are on a par. However, these are certainly kind of probably more detailed than anything that Hornby and Bachmann are releasing at the moment, and as such, if you're looking for a detailed, well-proportioned model, and one that is built with a high level of quality and kind of a real kind of just a quality feel about them, a weight to them, something that doesn't feel plasticky or like a toy, then this represents good value, I think. I think you're not going to, or you can't look for too much more quality in a wagon, and £30 seems like a kind of decent price to pay. Certainly, I know with a lot of Cavalex products that if you get involved early on, they always do pre-orders with a reduced price. So what I would say is, if you are looking at future Cavalex products and you are basically unsure, or you're just looking into them and deciding that yes, you would like to probably buy some, get in early, pre-order them. You'll probably end up paying a little bit less money, and it's certainly not a bad tip. If these wagons are anything to judge their future projects by, then get involved, and if you are interested, get pre-ordering, and you'll get a cheaper product basically, which increases the value for money feature. My final thoughts and kind of overall opinion of these wagons are that they are very, very good indeed. Stunning, in fact. I would say that of all the wagons in my collection, from the likes of Bachmann, Hornby, Dapol, and even Kerno Model Centre, these ones are as good, if not better, than everything I have. The level of detail is stunning, and whilst that isn't necessarily unique to Cavalex, the level of kind of quality that they put alongside that, the feel, the weight of them, alongside such levels of detailing and livery application, leaves these as an absolutely stunning wagon. Like I said, the only thing that I can really pick out is the paint application on those axles, but let's be honest, it's something that isn't a massive issue, and for me, if these were my wagons, I certainly would be weathering them up, and that wouldn't be seen anyway, so really not a problem. Before I go, I would just like to say something about Cavalex as a company. What I'm about to say isn't because they sent me some models to review. In fact, I've said this before on my Twitter page, long before I knew that they were going to. I think they're an important company, and I don't say that lightly. For a long time, there have been a couple of companies who have been running the model railway kind of space in terms of rolling stock, and have kind of duopolised the market. And whilst there are a few other companies who have been around and maybe are kind of coming back into things now, there are new companies like Cavalex, like Accurascale, who are joining the market and taking things very, very seriously indeed. There's obviously been a large investment into these, or creating these wagons. I've got no idea how much something like this costs to make, but I don't doubt for a second that it's a significant amount of money. And it takes guts, I suppose, to kind of get involved and start doing this, and doing it in a way that actually is bringing product to market and taking on big companies and bringing a product that many people will be proud to include on their layouts. And I would just like to say to Cavalex and Accurascale and any other company that is trying to get into manufacture of model railway rolling stock or locomotives, that it's important that you do so. So a big thank you to Cavalex for taking a risk and doing something and making a difference in the world of the modeler. It's not just them, and like I said, I think Accurascale, very much so, with some of their announcements recently. It's amazing, and long may it continue, because I think the model railway market will benefit massively. Competition should keep prices at a reasonable level, and whilst I'm sure that costs may rise, it will be because quality does too. I think for a long time the costs of the hobby have been rising for no real reason other than increased profit margins and inflation, and it kind of felt, to me at least, that certain models were being re-released year after year just with a massive price increase that I couldn't see how it was justified. So hopefully by people like Cavalex, Accurascale, of course Hattons with their new locomotives that they're bringing out, will drive prices down a little bit and also increase choice and quality, because ultimately that is the way that business works and survives. So a big thank you to Cavalex. It's been an honour to review these, I suppose, and not because they've been sent to me, but because they're a beautiful wagon, and certainly something that I would be looking to add to my collection in the future. I will leave it there for today. I will leave you with a few more running shots of these wagons on the layout, and I hope to see you again very soon on St Michael's Hill. Thank you very much. Goodbye.